Observer Jatharn floated in the darkness between stars, watching the small blue planet spin peacefully below. The human homeworld called Earth looked fragile from this distance, beautiful even. That made what came next more difficult, but no less necessary. Jatharn had performed this duty 317 times before. Each time, the weight felt the same, heavy with purpose, but lighter than the alternative. The Void Collective did not take pleasure in extinction. They simply understood that some suffering was too great to permit. "The calculations are confirmed," said Operative Venmora through their shared consciousness link. "The cascade will reach this system in 50 standard years. No civilization has ever survived it." Jatharn reviewed the data again, though the numbers never changed. 1,000 civilizations had stood in the cascade's path over the last 10 million years. 1,000 civilizations had been erased from existence when the reality collapse wave passed through their space. Not destroyed, erased, unmade at a fundamental level, as if they had never existed at all. The collective had studied the cascade for millions of years. They had tried everything to stop it, deflect it, or shield against it. Nothing worked. The wave moved through space-time itself, unmaking reality as it traveled. There was no defense. There was no escape. There was only the terrible waiting. And then the end. That was where mercy came in. "Begin the sequence," Jatharn commanded. The Oblivion pulse charged in the space around their vessel. It was the collective's greatest gift to suffering species, a weapon that erased consciousness instantly and completely. No pain, no fear, no 50 years of building hope only to watch it crumble. No children asking questions their parents could not answer. No desperate last moments realizing all struggle had been pointless. Just peaceful nothing, arriving 50 years early. Jatharn had read the human broadcasts. They were a young species, barely 3 centuries into space exploration. They had survived wars, diseases, environmental collapse, and their own worst impulses. They had built something worth protecting. Art, music, philosophy, love. They did not deserve the cascade. No one deserved the cascade. But the universe did not care about deserving. The wave came regardless, mechanical and merciless. The collective had learned long ago that the only mercy they could offer was speed. A quick end before the dread began. "The pulse is ready," Venmora reported. "All targets locked. Human population across 700 orbital stations and 12 colony worlds. Estimated consciousness count, 42 billion. 42 billion lives ended in a microsecond. 42 billion beings who would never know terror." "Fire," Jatharn said quietly. The Oblivion pulse launched, invisible and unstoppable. It moved faster than light, faster than thought. It should have reached Earth's system in 3 seconds. It should have done its work in less time than a heartbeat. Instead, alarms shrieked across the collective vessel. "Impossible," Venmora said, their mental voice sharp with confusion. "The pulse is dispersing. Something is interfering with the quantum field." Jatharn expanded their consciousness into the sensor net, seeing what their ship saw. The Oblivion pulse had struck something, some kind of field surrounding the human system, not a shield. Shields blocked energy. This was different. This resonated with the pulse, matching its frequency and scattering it harmlessly into space. "What is that?" Jatharn demanded. Venmora's analysis came back immediately. "A quantum consciousness network. The humans built it for deep space communication. It links every human mind across their civilization in a low-level connection. We didn't account for. The resonance is accidental but perfect. Our pulse cannot penetrate it." Jatharn felt something they had not experienced in thousands of years. Surprise. And beneath it, the first whisper of unease. "They survived," Venmora said unnecessarily. "Prepare a second pulse," Jatharn ordered. "Adjust the frequency to—" "Observer." Venmora's interruption was sharp. We are receiving a transmission from the humans. The communication appeared in their shared space, translated into concepts the collective could understand. A human female, wearing a dark blue uniform marked with symbols of military authority, stared directly at their sensors. Her face was young by human standards, but her eyes looked older, harder. "This is Captain Seo-Yeon Kim of the Human Defense Fleet," the woman said, her voice calm and cold. "Approximately 4 minutes ago, an unknown weapon was fired at our system. Our automated defenses identified and neutralized it. The weapon's origin point is your vessel." She paused, and Jatharn saw something in her expression that sent another ripple of unease through their consciousness. Not fear, not confusion, anger. "I don't know who you are, or why you attacked us," Captain Kim continued, "but you just made a very serious mistake. Humanity does not surrender to sneak attacks. We don't die quietly, and we definitely don't forgive attempted genocide." Another human appeared beside her, a male with kind features that were currently set in steel. "This is Dr. Min-jun Park," he said. "I designed the quantum consciousness network that apparently just saved our entire species. I've already begun analyzing the weapon you used. I will figure out how it works. I will figure out how to counter it completely, and I will figure out who you are." A third human joined them, older, wearing formal diplomatic robes. "Ambassador Ji-woo Chen," the man said quietly. "I speak for the Human Council. We are giving you one chance to explain yourselves. One chance to tell us why you tried to kill every man, woman, and child in our civilization. After that, we decide how humanity responds." Captain Kim leaned forward. "You have 12 hours to meet us at neutral coordinates we're sending now. Come alone. Come ready to talk. Because if you don't show up, or if you try this again, I promise you, we will find you. We will learn everything about you. And we will make you regret that you ever heard the word human." The transmission ended. Silence filled the collective vessel. Jatharn and Vanamora simply existed in that silence for a long moment, processing what had just happened. "They should be grateful," Vanamora finally said. "We were saving them from 50 years of suffering." But Jatharn was remembering Captain Kim's eyes. That anger, that absolute certainty. "I do not think they see it that way," Jatharn said slowly. "Then we must make them understand." Jatharn accessed the calculations again. 50 years until the cascade. 50 years for humans to build hope, to fight impossible odds, to exhaust themselves against mathematical certainty. 50 years of suffering that the collective could have prevented in a single painless moment. They should be grateful for mercy. But something about Captain Kim's expression made Jatharn wonder, for the first time in millennia, if perhaps humanity understood something the collective had forgotten. "Prepare the diplomatic vessel," Jatharn ordered. "We will meet them. We will explain. They will understand." They had to understand. The alternative was unthinkable, that the collective had just started something far more complicated than a simple mercy killing. That they had just started a war with beings who refused to accept the gift of Oblivion. The neutral station hung in empty space, exactly between human territory and the coordinates the Void Collective had transmitted. Captain Seo-Yeon Kim stood in the observation deck, watching the strange vessel approach. It looked like frozen smoke, dark and shifting, barely visible against the stars. "Atmospheric readings are stable," Dr. Min-jun Park said from his console. "They're matching our environmental settings, nitrogen-oxygen mix. That's considerate." "Or strategic," Ambassador Ji-woo Chen said quietly. "They want us comfortable, relaxed, more likely to accept whatever explanation they're about to give." Seo-Yeon kept her eyes on the vessel. "I don't care how comfortable the room is. They tried to kill us, all of us. Every human alive. Her hand rested on her sidearm, though she knew weapons would be useless against beings who could fire reality-erasing pulses across star systems. The weight was comforting anyway. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. 3 figures entered, and Seo Yan had to fight not to step back. They looked like shadows given form, tall, thin, with features that seemed to shift when she tried to focus on them. Their eyes were the worst part, empty, like looking into deep space. The lead figure inclined its head. I am Observer Jatharn of the Void Collective. With me are Operative Venmora and Analyst Krayshawn. We come in peace, Seo Yan almost laughed. You come in peace? That's fascinating, since 4 days ago you tried to commit genocide. We understand your anger, Jatharn said, their voice like wind through a cave. But you misunderstand our intentions. We did not attack you. We tried to save you. Dr. Park looked up from his console. Save us. By killing us. Yes. Jatharn moved to the center of the room, and suddenly the space filled with images. Star systems, planets, civilizations, all different, all beautiful. These are the worlds that came before you. 1,000 civilizations spanning 10 million years. All of them stood in the path of the cascade. What's the cascade? Ambassador Chen asked. The images shifted. Seo Yan watched in horror as a wave of pure darkness moved through space. When it touched a star system, everything simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, erased, as if it had never been real. The cascade is a reality collapse phenomenon, Jatharn explained. We do not know what causes it. We only know it cannot be stopped. It moves through space-time itself, unmaking everything in its path. We have studied it for millions of years. We have tried everything to stop it, deflect it, shield against it. Nothing works. Venmora stepped forward. The cascade is currently moving toward your section of space. Our calculations show it will reach your system in 50 standard years, not 49, not 51, 50. Show them, Jatharn said quietly. The images changed again. Seo Yan saw species she'd never heard of, civilizations far more advanced than humanity. She watched them detect the cascade, watched them build weapons, shields, evacuation fleets. Watch them try everything. She watched them fail. Every single one. This is the Vorath hegemony, Jatharn said, highlighting one particularly advanced civilization. They had 12,000 years to prepare. They built quantum barriers across their entire stellar region. They developed technology that could manipulate space-time. None of it mattered. The cascade unmade them in 17 seconds. The room fell silent. Seo Yan felt ice spreading through her chest. 50 years. They had 50 years before unstoppable Oblivion arrived. So you decided to kill us first, she said, her voice flat. We decided to spare you, Jatharn corrected. The Oblivion pulse ends consciousness instantly. No pain, no fear, no suffering. You would have simply ceased to exist, but you would have been spared 50 years of dread, 50 years of building hope only to watch it die, 50 years of trying everything, sacrificing everything, and still failing in the end. Jatharn's empty eyes somehow conveyed something like sadness. We have watched civilizations tear themselves apart in those final years. We have seen parents forced to explain to children that no future exists. We have witnessed the despair that comes from certainty. Our pulse is mercy. We end the suffering before it begins. Dr. Park was staring at his console, his fingers moving rapidly. Your data is accurate, he said softly. I've been checking. The cascade is real. The timeline is correct. Everything you've shown us checks out. Ambassador Chen looked older suddenly. 50 years. 50 years of peace, Jatharn said, or 50 years of suffering followed by the same end. We chose to give you peace. We have done this for 300 civilizations. All of them would have thanked us if they had known. Seo Yan listened to all of this. absorbed it, processed it. Then she stepped forward until she was directly in front of Jatharn. "You're right," she said quietly. "The data is convincing. The cascade is real. We probably can't stop it." Jatharn inclined their head. "Then you understand? We understand that you're murderers who don't even realize what you've done." Seo Yon's voice was cold enough to freeze stars. "You don't get to choose for us. You don't get to decide that our hope is worthless. You don't get to calculate that our struggle is pointless and therefore not worth allowing." "But the mathematics," Venmora began. "I don't care about your mathematics." Seo Yon's shout echoed through the station. 50 years is 50 years. That's time we could spend trying, time we could spend fighting, time we could spend being alive and choosing our own path. Dr. Park stood up, his kind face set like stone. "You showed us 1,000 failed civilizations. You know what I see? 1,000 different approaches, 1,000 data sets, 1,000 examples of what doesn't work, which means we know 1,000 things not to try." Ambassador Chen moved to stand beside Seo Yon. "Humanity has faced extinction before. Asteroid impacts, supervolcanoes, nuclear weapons. Every time we were told the odds were impossible. Every time we survived anyway. Not because we ignored the math, but because we refused to let math decide our fate." "This is different," Kreshan said. "The cascade is far worse than anything we've faced." "Yes, we understand." Seo Yon crossed her arms. "Dr. Park, tell them about the survival initiative." Park pulled up new images, human stations, research facilities, shipyards already beginning construction. "We started this 7 hours after your attack. Every human scientist, engineer, and mathematician is now working on cascade countermeasures. We're studying your data, building on what others tried, developing new approaches. We have 50 years. We're going to use every second." Jatharn stared at the images. "You will fail. The mathematics guarantee it." "Maybe," Ambassador Chen said calmly. "Probably, even. But that's our choice to make. Our risk to take. Our 50 years to spend however we decide." Seo Yon stepped even closer to Jatharn. "You came here to explain, to help us understand why you tried to kill us. Consider this our explanation. Humanity doesn't surrender. We don't lie down and accept death because someone calculated that fighting is pointless. We fight anyway. We try anyway. We hope anyway." "That is irrational," Venmora said. "That's humanity," Seo Yon agreed. "And since you tried to kill us, we're adding a new goal to the survival initiative. We're not just going to save ourselves, we're going to save you, too." The 3 collective members went completely still. "What?" Jatharn finally said. Ambassador Chen smiled sadly. "The cascade will reach your territories eventually, too, won't it? Maybe in 1,000,000 years. Maybe 10 million. But eventually. And when it does, you'll need solutions. So we're going to develop those solutions. We're going to prove it's possible to survive. And we're going to share everything we learn with you. You're going to save the beings who tried to exterminate you," Jatharn said slowly, as if testing whether the words made sense. "Yes," Seo Yon said simply. "Because unlike you, we don't get to decide who deserves to live and who deserves mercy death. Everyone deserves a chance to fight, including you." Jatharn stood motionless for a long moment. Then quietly, "You have condemned yourselves to 50 years of suffering for nothing." "Maybe. We'll find out together." The 3 collective members left without another word. Seo Yon watched their vessel disappear into the dark. Beside her, Dr. Park let out a shaky breath. "Did we just threaten them with hope?" he asked. "Yes," Ambassador Chen said. "And I think they're more scared of that than they were of anything else." Seo Yan looked at the image of the cascade still floating in the room. 50 years. Impossible odds. Certain death. "Good," she said. "Let them be scared. Maybe fear will teach them something mercy never could." The message board in Research Station Harmony displayed 217 alien species. All of them were in the Cascade's path. All of them had 45 years or less before reality came apart around them. Dr. Min-Jun Park stood before the display, exhausted. He'd been awake for 30 hours straight, but the stimulants kept him functional. Sleep could wait. They had work to do. "The creche have accepted our offer," announced Dr. Yoon from Communications. "That's species number 43. They're sending their top scientists to collaborate on the resonance net." Park allowed himself a small smile. The creche were insectoid beings who understood collective survival better than most. Their entire civilization worked as a single organism. If anyone could help build the quantum shield network, it was them. "What about the Valorian Empire?" he asked. Dr. Yoon's expression fell. They said hope is poison, that humanity is spreading false promises. They've accepted the collective's mercy offer instead." Park closed his eyes. The Valorians had been a beautiful species, artistic, philosophical, peaceful. In 2 months, they would cease to exist, voluntarily, because the Void Collective had convinced them that dying now was better than trying to live. "Add them to the memorial list," he said quietly. "Make sure we remember them." The door slid open and Captain Seo Yeon Kim entered, now promoted to commander of the Survival Initiative Defense Fleet. Her uniform was different, less military, more practical, built for long-term deployment. "We have a problem," she said without preamble. "The collective is actively working against us." Park turned. "What do you mean?" Seo Yeon pulled up tactical displays. 3 of our deep space research stations went dark yesterday. All 3 were hit by precise plasma strikes. No warnings, no survivors. The weapons signatures match collective technology. "They're attacking us?" Dr. Yoon asked, horrified. "No, they're sabotaging us." Seo Yeon highlighted more locations. "Supply lines have been disrupted. Our quantum communication network has been jammed in 12 sectors, and species we've contacted are suddenly refusing meetings, claiming they've received warnings about humanity's dangerous optimism." Park felt anger rise in his chest. "They're trying to isolate us, make sure we fail." "Why would they do that?" Dr. Yoon asked. "If we find a way to survive the cascade, isn't that good for everyone?" "No," Ambassador Ji Woo-chen said, entering behind Seo Yeon. "If humanity survives, it proves the collective wrong. It invalidates 10,000 years of their mercy philosophy. They've killed 300 civilizations. If even one of those civilizations could have been saved, then they're not merciful," Park finished. "They're murderers." Seo Yeon nodded grimly. "We intercepted a collective transmission. Observer Jatharn has authorization to use any means necessary to prevent human success. They can't let us survive. It would destroy everything they believe about themselves." "What do we do?" Dr. Yoon asked. Park looked at the memorial list, species who'd given up, accepted oblivion, chosen surrender over struggle. Then he looked at the collaboration list, 43 species working together, building something unprecedented, refusing to die quietly. "We keep working," he said firmly, "and we work faster." Over the next months, the pattern continued. The collective would sabotage a research station. Humanity would rebuild it in half the time with better equipment. The collective would disrupt supply lines. Humanity would establish new routes, more efficient than before. The collective would spread propaganda about false hope. Humanity would send actual results, early resonance net tests showing promise, new shielding theories, prototype survival pods. Engineer Hae-Won Cho led the reconstruction efforts. She was a small woman with a gift for creative solutions and absolute stubborn refusal to accept defeat. When the collective destroyed Research Station 7, she had it rebuilt and operational in 18 days. When they destroyed it again, she rebuilt it in 12. "They're wasting resources," she told Park cheerfully. "Every attack they launch costs them energy and materials. Every rebuild teaches us something new. We're actually learning faster because they keep making us start over. The war, if it could be called that, was strange. No battles, no military engagements, just endless cycles of destruction and reconstruction, interference and adaptation. The collective tried to make humanity fail. Humanity simply refused. Then came the incident at Research Station Delta. The station was deep in neutral space, studying cascade resonance patterns. Dr. Park had personally designed its quantum sensors. 50 human scientists worked there, along with 20 Kresh researchers and a handful of Narim observers. The collective sabotage team approached silently, intending to destroy the station's reactor. But something went wrong. The explosion was too large, too fast. The station began collapsing and the saboteurs, 50 collective agents, were trapped inside. SEO Yan received the distress signal aboard her command ship. The automated systems had identified collective energy signatures in the failing station. The attackers were trapped by their own weapon. "Commander," her tactical officer said carefully, "if we don't respond, the collective agents will die. It would solve our sabotage problem." Seo Yan stared at the sensor readouts. 50 enemy agents, beings who'd been trying to destroy humanity's last hope, beings who wanted humanity to fail, to die, to accept oblivion quietly. "Plot a rescue course," she ordered. "Maximum speed." "Commander, you heard me. Move." The rescue took 4 hours. 4 hours of her best teams cutting through twisted metal and collapsing corridors. 4 hours of risking human lives to save beings who'd tried to kill them. Dr. Park's team had to link consciousness with the trapped collective agents to guide them through the quantum shields safely. Engineer Cho personally carried 3 agents to safety. When it was over, 53 humans had minor injuries. 2 were in critical condition, but all 50 collective agents survived. One of them, an operative named Vaishara, stood in the rescue ship's medical bay, staring at the humans who'd saved her. Her shadowy form seemed more solid somehow, more real. "Why?" she asked Seo Yan. "We were trying to destroy your work. We want you to fail. Why would you save us?" Seo Yan, exhausted and covered in burns from a plasma fire, just looked at her. "Because that's what people do. We save each other, even when it's hard, even when it doesn't make sense, even when the people we're saving are actively working against us." "But we're your enemies." "You're beings who are scared," Seo Yan corrected. "Scared that maybe you've been wrong for 10,000 years. Scared that maybe all those civilizations could have been saved. Scared that accepting oblivion isn't mercy. It's just giving up. I understand that fear. It doesn't mean I'll let you die." Vaishara was silent for a long moment. Then quietly, "You are not what we expected." "Good. Maybe that'll teach you something." The report that Vaishara sent to observer Jatharn was marked as classified, but human intelligence intercepted it anyway. Ambassador Chen read it aloud to the assembled council. "I have witnessed something that does not fit our understanding. Humans saved us after we tried to destroy them. They risked their own lives for beings who want them to fail. They did not hesitate. They did not demand gratitude. They simply acted as if preservation of life is the only rational choice, regardless of circumstance. I request permission to remain and observe them further. I do not think we understand what we are fighting." Park leaned back in his chair. "She's right. They don't understand." "Should we explain it to them?" Dr. Yoon asked. Seo Yan smiled grimly. "No. Let them figure it out themselves. Maybe if they watch long enough, they'll learn something their mercy philosophy never taught them." "What's that?" Engineer Cho asked. "That giving up isn't mercy. It's just the easier path, and humanity never takes the easy path." On the Void Collective vessel, Jatharn reviewed Vaishara's report for the 100th time. Around them, the council debated loudly. Some wanted to escalate, to destroy humanity completely. Others wanted to withdraw, to let these strange beings fail on their own. But Jatharn kept returning to one line in the report. They saved us without hesitation. The collective had spent 10,000 years granting mercy to the suffering. They had ended pain before it could begin. They had spared billions from the terror of hopeless struggle. But watching the humans work, watching them save even their enemies, watching them choose the harder path every single time, Jatharn felt something they hadn't experienced in millions of years. Doubt. "Observer," Venmora said quietly, "what are your orders?" Jatharn stared at the image of Research Station Delta, now fully repaired and operating again. The humans had already improved its design, made it better than before. "No more direct sabotage," Jatharn said slowly. "Vaishara is correct. We do not understand them, and until we do, we cannot predict what they will do." "You're letting them continue?" Krayshawn asked, shocked. "I am watching them," Jatharn corrected, "and learning, because they have started teaching us something we thought we knew." "What's that?" Jatharn watched the humans working, building, saving, hoping. "What it means to refuse surrender," they said quietly, "and why that might be more dangerous than any weapon we possess." Vaishara stood in the observation deck of Research Station Harmony, watching humans work. She had been embedded with them for 3 months now, officially to document their failure for the collective archives. But documentation had become something else entirely. Understanding, or the beginning of it. "Coffee?" Dr. Minjun Park appeared beside her, holding 2 steaming cups. He'd learned that offering refreshments was a human gesture of friendship. The collective didn't eat or drink, they existed on pure energy, but Vaishara appreciated the intention. "No, thank you," she said, "but I appreciate the offer." Park smiled and sipped his own coffee. His eyes had dark circles beneath them. He'd been awake for 26 hours, testing new resonance patterns for the SHIELD network. "Watching us again?" "Always." Vaishara gestured to the work floor below. 200 beings, human, Kresh, Narim, and a dozen other species, worked in organized chaos. Quantum calculations floated in holographic displays. Engineers shouted across the room. Someone was singing while they assembled delicate sensor arrays. "You never stop," she observed. "I have seen you work 30-hour shifts. I have seen you celebrate tiny successes as if they guarantee survival. I have seen you fail the same experiment 20 times and try a 21st. Why?" Park considered the question seriously. "Because someone has to. Because giving up means accepting that all those hours, all those failures, all those tiny successes were worthless. We can't know if we'll succeed until we try everything. But our calculations show—" "Your calculations showed the Oblivion pulse would kill us," Park interrupted gently. "Your calculations said we couldn't possibly defend against it. Your calculations were wrong. Maybe your calculations about the cascade are wrong too." Vaishara couldn't argue with that. The humans should have died. The math had been perfect. The pulse was unstoppable. Except it wasn't, because the humans had accidentally built something the collective had never imagined possible. She followed Park down to the work floor. A young human engineer named Hae-Won Cho was arguing with a Kresh researcher about SHIELD resonance frequencies. The Kresh's translation device rendered their clicking language into standard speech. "The frequency needs to be variable," Cho insisted. "If the cascade adapts, a fixed frequency will fail." "But variable frequencies require more power," the Kresh researcher clicked. "Power we don't have." "Then we find the power. We build bigger reactors. We tap quantum zero-point energy. We do whatever it takes." Cho's voice was passionate, absolute. The Kresh researcher's antennae twitched with what Vaishara had learned was amusement. "You humans. You say, whatever it takes, as if resources are unlimited. Resources are just another problem to solve," Cho said cheerfully. Everything's just another problem, and problems have solutions. Vaishara watched this exchange with growing confusion. The humans weren't delusional. They understood the odds. She'd seen their private moments, the fear in their eyes when they thought no one was watching. But they never let that fear stop them. They never calculated whether effort was worth the probable outcome. They just kept working. Come with me, Park said, leading Vaishara to a quieter section of the station. A wall displayed thousands of names, sorted by species and homeworld. This is the memorial wall. Every being who accepted the collective's mercy instead of fighting. We remember them. Why? Vaishara asked. They made the logical choice. They accepted peace over suffering. They made a choice, Park agreed. I'm not saying it was wrong, but we want to remember that they existed, that they mattered, that their decision to surrender doesn't erase their worth. He touched a section displaying the Valorian Empire. I spent a year studying Valorian poetry. They were beautiful beings, their art was stunning, they had so much to give the galaxy. And they just stopped. Because someone told them hope was poison. His voice cracked slightly. Maybe they would have failed. Maybe the cascade is truly unstoppable. But they'll never know now. They surrendered without trying, and that makes me angrier than anything the collective has done to us. Vaishara felt something strange inside her consciousness. Not physical. The collective existed beyond physical sensation. But something shifted in her understanding. You're not angry that we tried to kill you. You're angry that we convinced others not to try living. Yes, Park said simply. Kill us. Sabotage us. Fight us. Fine. That's a conflict we can engage with. But telling beings that their hope is worthless, that trying is pointless, that surrender is mercy, that's worse than any weapon. Movement caught their attention. A group of human children ran past, laughing. They were station-born, raised in space, too young to remember Earth. One of them waved at Park as they passed. Those kids, Park said quietly. They might only have 20 years left, maybe less. They might die when the cascade reaches us. But right now they're learning, playing, growing. They're writing letters to future generations. We tried everything. They know the odds. They choose to live anyway. That's irrational, Vaishara said, but her voice lacked conviction. That's humanity. Over the following weeks, Vaishara documented everything. She watched scientists work impossible hours, not for glory or recognition, but simply because the work needed doing. She watched families volunteer for dangerous shield experiments to test life support systems. She watched children draw pictures of imaginary futures where humanity survived. She watched humans celebrate every tiny success, a resonance frequency that held stable for 10 seconds longer, a shield pattern that absorbed 0.03% more energy, a calculation that narrowed the possible solutions from infinite to merely billions. They celebrated all of it like guaranteed survival. The resonance net is at 60% coverage, Commander Seo Yeon Kim announced at a general briefing. 20 years had passed since the collective's first attack. Seo Yeon had gray in her hair now, lines around her eyes, but her voice remained steady. We have 30 years until the cascade arrives. We're behind schedule, but not impossibly so. The power requirements are still too high, Engineer Cho reported. She'd been promoted to chief engineer, responsible for the entire network's infrastructure. We need another breakthrough in reactor efficiency. Then we'll find one, Ambassador Chen said. The ambassador was old now, moving carefully but still sharp. What else? Dr. Park stood. I think I've found a way to boost the shield resonance using quantum entanglement with the cascade itself. It's theoretical. It might not work, but if it does... We try it, Seo Yeon said immediately. Worst case, we learn something. Best case, we survive. Vaishara raised her hand. Every human head turned toward her. "May I speak?" "Of course," Chen said warmly. "You're part of this team, whether the collective admits it or not." "I need to report what I have learned," Vaishara said slowly. "Observer Jatharn expects documentation of your failure, but I cannot report what they expect to hear." "What will you report?" Park asked gently. Vaishara looked around the room at faces marked by exhaustion, determination, hope, and fear all mixed together. "I will report that you are not delusional. You understand the odds perfectly. You simply refuse to let mathematical probability determine your choices. You fight not because you're certain of success, but because surrender is unthinkable to you." She paused, finding words for something the collective had never named. "I will report that you don't measure success by outcome. You measure it by effort, by attempt, by the refusal to accept that anyone should die in darkness without someone trying to light a candle." Silence filled the room. "That's the most human thing I've heard a non-human say," Seo Yun said finally. "I am beginning to understand why the collective fears you," Vaishara continued. "You're not fighting the cascade. You're fighting the idea that hopeless situations exist. That's far more dangerous to beings who have built their entire philosophy on accepting the inevitable." "What will Jatharn do with that report?" Chen asked. "I do not know, but I can no longer pretend humanity's approach is simply stubborn denial. You have taught me something the collective stopped believing millions of years ago." "What's that?" Park asked. "That choosing to try, even when failure seems certain, is not the same as failing to accept reality. It's a different relationship with reality altogether. You acknowledge the darkness and light candles anyway. Not because you think the candles will hold back the night forever, but because beings shouldn't die in darkness if even one small light is possible." Vaishara transmitted her report to observer Jatharn that night. She expected anger, rejection, maybe even exile from the collective. Instead, she received a single message. "Return to the collective vessel. The council needs to hear this directly." When Vaishara arrived, she found the council in chaos. Some wanted to destroy humanity completely. Others wanted to withdraw all interference. Jatharn stood at the center, silent, listening to arguments that had likely continued for weeks. Finally, Jatharn spoke. "Vaishara has spent months embedded with humanity. She has seen what we have only observed from distance. I want her testimony heard." Vaishara stepped forward and told them everything. The celebrations over tiny victories, the children writing letters to futures they'd likely never see, the memorial wall for beings who'd surrendered, the absolute refusal to calculate whether effort was worth probable outcome. When she finished, the council sat in stunned silence. "They are doomed," Krishan finally said. "The mathematics are clear." "Perhaps," Vaishara agreed, "but they will be doomed having tried everything, saved everyone they could, and refused to let anyone face the end alone. Can we say the same about the 300 civilizations we've mercy killed?" The question hung in the air, unanswerable. Finally, Jatharn spoke. "No more interference. The council votes to withdraw. Humanity has earned the right to fail on their own terms." Vaishara felt relief wash through her consciousness. "Thank you." "Do not thank us," Jatharn said quietly. "We are simply acknowledging that we no longer know what we're fighting, and until we understand, interference is worse than useless." Vaishara returned to Research Station Harmony and delivered the news. The humans celebrated briefly, one less problem to solve, and then returned to work. Because that's what they did. They worked, hoped, and tried everything, even when the darkness came closer every day. The alarms started 45 years after the collective's first attack. 5 years too early. Dr. Min Jun Park was in his laboratory when the quantum sensors screamed warnings. The cascade was coming, not in 30 years as calculated, Not in 20. Now. This isn't possible, he whispered, staring at the readings. The timeline was certain. We had time. We had... Park! Commander Seo-yeon Kim's voice cut through the panic. She was older now, her hair fully gray, but her voice remained sharp. Report! The cascade is here, Park said, his voice hollow. Our calculations were wrong. It's moving faster than any model predicted. It'll hit the outer sectors in 6 hours. Silence filled the command center. 50 years of work, 50 years of hope, 50 years of refusing to surrender. And the universe had changed the timeline anyway. Engineer Hae-won Cho pulled up the resonance net status. Her hands shook slightly. She was 60 years old now, had spent her entire adult life building the SHIELD network. We're at 60% coverage. We can protect maybe 35 of the 50 civilizations in the Cascade's path. The rest... She didn't finish. She didn't need to. Ambassador Ji-woo Chen, now 90 years old and moving with a cane, stood slowly. We need to decide who gets the SHIELD coverage. Now! The choice was impossible. 20 species would have protection, 30 would not. Billions would live, billions would die, all because humanity hadn't worked fast enough. No. Seo-yeon's voice cut through the despair. We don't choose. We protect the most vulnerable first. Children, medical facilities, research stations with civilian populations. We maximize lives saved, not species saved. Commander, Cho said carefully, if we do that, Earth will be outside the coverage zone. Humanity won't be protected. Every head turned toward Seo-yeon. The silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. Then humanity isn't protected, Seo-yeon said flatly. We built this network to save people, not to save ourselves. Start evacuation procedures. Every human who can fit moves into the protected zones. The rest of us stay at our posts and keep the network running as long as possible. Commander, someone protested. That's an order. Seo-yeon's voice cracked like thunder. We didn't spend 50 years fighting for survival just to abandon everyone else at the end. Move! Chaos erupted. Ships launched from Earth carrying children, elderly, sick, anyone who couldn't help with the network. The rest remained. Scientists, engineers, military personnel, volunteers. 40 million humans positioned themselves in ships, stations, and outposts between the Cascade and the protected zones. Dr. Park stood in his laboratory, watching the Cascade approach on his sensors. It looked exactly as the collective had shown them 50 years ago. Beautiful, in a terrible way. A wave of pure darkness, erasing reality as it moved. Park! Seo-yeon's voice came through his communicator. I need you to link the quantum consciousness network. All humans outside the SHIELD. We're going to try to slow it down. Commander, that's suicide. The network wasn't designed for... I know what it wasn't designed for. But we're out of options. The Cascade is moving too fast. The SHIELD needs 3 more hours to reach full power. We need to buy that time. Park closed his eyes. The quantum consciousness network linked every human mind in a low-level connection. It had saved them from the Oblivion pulse. But turning it into a buffer against the Cascade, the network would collapse. Everyone connected to it would... Understood, he said quietly. Initiating connection protocols. On the Void collective vessel, observer Jae Tharn watched in horror. What are they doing? Vaishara, who had remained with the collective to help interpret human behavior, stared at the tactical displays. They're positioning themselves between the Cascade and the protected zones. They're going to use their consciousness network as a barrier. That's impossible. The Cascade will destroy them. Yes, Vaishara said softly. They know. 40 million human minds linked together. Park felt the connection snap into place, millions of consciousnesses touching his, sharing his fear, his hope, his absolute determination to give everyone else just a little more time. Network stable, he reported. Resonance field extending. We're creating interference with the Cascade's quantum signature. How long can you hold it? Seo Yan asked from her flagship. Unknown. Minutes. Maybe hours if we're lucky. Then we make every second count. The cascade hit the human line like a wall of absolute nothing. Park felt it through the network, reality unmaking itself, consciousness dissolving, existence ceasing. Ships on the outer edge simply stopped being. The humans inside them didn't die. They were erased, as if they'd never existed, but the line held, barely. The quantum consciousness network resonated with the cascade, creating interference. Not stopping it, not defeating it, just slowing it down, just giving the shield a little more time. Park watched his sensors. 3 hours needed. They'd bought 40 minutes. Not enough, he whispered. Then louder. Commander, we need more people in the line. The resonance is failing. Negative, Seo Yan said, but her voice wavered. We've already committed everyone who... Commander Kim. Engineer Cho's voice, calm and certain. Transfer Earth Section 7 shield coverage to the Kresh homeworld. Put Earth in the line instead. Cho, that's 8 billion people. Who knew what they signed up for when we started this project? We built the network to save people, not ourselves. Transfer the coverage, now. Silence. Then, transfer authorized. Earth Section 7 moving to buffer position. 8 billion more minds joined the network. The resonance strengthened. The cascade slowed further, not stopped, not defeated, but slower. Park felt his laboratory shudder. The cascade was close now. He could see it through the viewports. Darkness that was somehow more than darkness. The absence of everything. Commander, he said calmly, the shield is at 95% power. Just 15 more minutes. We don't have 15 minutes, Seo Yan said. Her flagship was already dissolving at the edges. We have maybe 5. Then we hold for 5, Park said. And we make it enough. The next 5 minutes lasted forever and no time at all. Park watched his sensors as ships vanished. Stations ceased existing. Billions of consciousness points in the network simply stopped. He felt each one disappear, not dying, just ending, erased from reality. He watched Commander Kim's flagship dissolve around her. Her last transmission was steady. Keep the network active. Every second matters. He watched Earth begin to unmake itself, oceans evaporating into nothing, continents dissolving, the planet that birthed humanity simply ceasing to be. He watched his own hands start to fade, reality pulling apart at the quantum level. And he watched the shield hit 100% power. Resonance net activated, he said, his voice barely a whisper. The laboratory was gone. His body was going, but the network still functioned, still transmitted. Shield coverage at maximum, protected zones are secure, 35 civilizations are safe. The last thing Dr. Min Jun Park saw before reality unmade him was the shield holding, stable, perfect, protecting billions. Then he was gone. The resonance net blazed to life, a barrier of pure quantum interference surrounding the protected zones. The cascade hit it and stopped, not defeated, not destroyed, but held back, deflected around the shield like water around a stone. Inside the protected zones, 35 civilizations watched in stunned silence as the darkness passed by them, harmless. 40 million humans had died. Earth was gone, erased from existence. But 8 billion humans survived in the shelter stations. And 35 other civilizations, billions of beings, lived because humanity had put them first. On the Void collective vessel, Jatharn stood motionless. Around them, the council sat in silence. They had watched everything, seen everything. They knew they would die, Krishan finally whispered. They calculated it, accepted it, and they did it anyway. Not to save themselves, Vaishara said, her voice thick with something the collective had no name for. To save everyone else, They spent 50 years learning to fight the impossible, and when the moment came, they didn't fight for themselves. They fought for beings they'd never met, species they'd just learned existed, children who would never know their names. Jatharn accessed the final transmissions. Commander Kim's steady voice, Dr. Park's calm report, Engineer Cho's certainty, 40 million voices, all saying the same thing. Keep going. Every second matters. Make it count. We were wrong, Jatharn said quietly. About everything. Observer? Van Mora asked. We thought mercy was sparing them from suffering, but they taught us something we'd forgotten over millions of years. Sometimes choosing to suffer, choosing to struggle, choosing to try even when failure is certain. That's not delusion. That's not denial. That's the most powerful force in the universe. Hope, Vaishara said. No. Jatharn looked at the shield, still blazing, still protecting. A monument built with 40 million lives. Not hope, something stronger. The absolute refusal to let anyone face the darkness alone. They didn't fight the cascade for themselves. They fought it for everyone else. And that's far worse than Oblivion itself. Why worse? Kreshan asked. Because now we have to live knowing that 300 civilizations might have done the same thing if we'd let them try. We granted them mercy. But we took away their choice. We took away their chance to be heroes, to sacrifice, to matter. The council sat in that truth for a long time. Finally, Jatharn spoke. The Void Collective is dissolved. Our mercy doctrine is ended. From this day forward, we do not grant oblivion. We offer knowledge, assistance, support. We give civilizations the tools to fight. And we let them choose. The other collectives won't accept this, Van Mora warned. Then we convince them. We show them what we saw. 40 million beings who looked at certain death and said yes, but not until everyone else is safe. That's the argument against mercy death. Not words, not philosophy, just that. 1 year later, Ambassador Jiwoo Chen, somehow still alive, still working at 91 years old, stood at the dedication ceremony for New Earth Station. 8 billion humans had survived. They were rebuilding, growing, already designing new projects, new solutions, new ways to help other species. Jatharn attended the ceremony, one of the first collective members to do so in recorded history. How do you do it? They asked Chen quietly. How do you keep fighting when the odds say you should stop? Chen smiled. Tired and warm. Because the odds don't get to decide. We do. And we decided a long time ago that we'd rather die trying to save everyone than live with saving no one. That choice, that's what makes us human. That's terrifying, Jatharn admitted. Good, Chen said. Then you're finally starting to understand what you started a war with. A human child, station-born, 7 years old, too young to remember Earth, ran up and handed Jatharn a flower. Grown in New Earth's hydroponics bay, bright red and impossibly delicate. For you, the child said simply. Because everyone deserves something beautiful. Jatharn held the flower carefully, feeling its fragile weight. Something shifted in their ancient consciousness. Not understanding exactly, but the beginning of it. Thank you, they said. The child smiled and ran off to play. Chen watched her go, his expression soft. 40 million died so she could do that, he said quietly. Run and play and give flowers to strangers. They knew they'd never see it. Fought for it anyway. That's irrational, Jatharn said, but without conviction. That's humanity, Chen agreed. And that's why you'll never beat us. Because we don't fight for ourselves. We fight for moments like this. For children giving flowers. For someone having a chance to try. For no one dying alone in the dark. Jatharn looked at the flower, then at the station full of humans already building, hoping, planning impossible things. We were wrong to call our doctrine mercy, they said finally. Mercy would have been letting you try, letting you choose, letting you fight for what you believed in, even if you failed. You understand now, Chen said. I'm beginning to. Jatharn carefully placed the flower in a preservation case. We started a war with something far worse than Oblivion. We started a war with beings who prove every day that surrender is a choice, and they choose differently. They looked at Chen. We will not forget what your people did, how they died, what they proved. Good, Chen said firmly. Use it. Teach it. Make sure no civilization ever again is told that trying is worthless. That's how you honor the 40 million? Jatharn inclined their head and left. The flower remained behind, preserved forever, a reminder that even in the darkest universe, someone will try to bring light. And that's far more terrifying than any darkness could ever be.